computers for 10 years until about 8 months ago. And the last slideshow or presentation or public speaking that I had done was 26 years ago. So take whatever you see here as a grain of salt. We're a fledgling organization. This is our first outing. There's a great turnout. There's going to be great things in the future, and we hope everyone has fun here tonight.
What is the ALPR?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's why we're all here. Well, that's this. Do you want to start off with this?
Sure. Whatever you'd like.
Go for it.
Alrighty. So, thank you for coming. I want tonight to be useful whether you arrived concerned about surveillance, supportive of these tools, or simply curious. We are going to start with automated license plate readers because they give a concrete local example. From there, we will follow the data outward and into software platforms, camera systems that exist outside of ALPR, vendors, state law, and the policies that determine what all of this can grow into. This event happens during ALPR National Week of Action, so that's what this event is under the umbrella of. The larger question, though, is local. When technology can record and connect information about ordinary people, what rules should govern it? Our purpose here tonight with BIM Privacy Alliance, we're not here to argue that every camera is bad or that every use of technology is illegitimate. Our role is to ask the questions that should accompany public power. What is collected? Who can access it? How long does it last? What safeguards exist, and who are the ones that get to decide that for us? The standard I hope you can use tonight is simple. The community should understand consequential technology before it becomes routine. I will, before we get started actually, there is a list of common terms amongst the tables, but to answer your questions, sir, ALPR stands for Automatic License Plate Reader. Other terms you might hear are ANPR, which is Automated Number Plate Reader, Flock Safety, Flock OS, Falcon, Flock Falcon, Raven, Axon Fleet 3, and a bunch of other terms that are probably on the back, a little bit less used. These 5 principles are the lens we use throughout the presentation. Privacy by default, transparency first, accountability and oversight, community-centered decision-making, and proportionality. You do not need to memorize them. Just notice that none of them ask whether a technology is oppressive. They ask whether the technology is necessary, limited, understandable, and accountable. We will return to these principles at the end when we talk about policy. Surveillance policy is ultimately about the relationship between people and institutions, like our city councils and the county commission, for instance. A system can be useful and still create risks if it records too broadly, keeps data too long, or allows access that the public never expected. These choices can affect privacy, association, public trust, or mistrust, and how comfortable people feel participating in civic life. The question is not whether technology can help. The question is whether the rules are strong enough that useful technology remains bounded by purpose and the public accepts it. Tonight, what we are going to cover, we will move from how ALPR works to what is happening locally, to law and policy, vendors and data flows, to risk and safeguards, and to finally what all of you can do to get involved for yourselves. Our conversation guidelines, and these are just a frame of mind to keep in place. They're not stringent by any means. A few ground rules will help us have a useful discussion. So please disagree with ideas without targeting people. Listen to understand. Share airtime. Keep claims as accurate and verifiable as we can, and stay focused on solutions rather than personalities. Regarding the presentation is, recording of the presentation is permitted. Please ask before photographing or recording other attendees in a way that identifies them. No one needs to disclose their personal, legal, medical, immigration, religious, or traumatic experience in order to make a point. You can always pass. Thank you.
I saw something online today, and I thought this was fitting. It's from a gentleman named Chris Boyd. It says, "A future of mass surveillance is not the future I am fighting for. As a Canyon County prosecutor, I know well the law enforcement benefits of automated license plate readers and cameras such as Flock. My law enforcement partners and I care deeply about keeping our communities safe, and I can confidently say that the Nampa and Caldwell police departments are chiefly motivated by that. While those benefits are real, so are the risks. I'm deeply concerned that such tools may become a curse to our children's generation. When we cover our streets with constant automated surveillance, we are building a cage. Right now, I believe it's used for legitimate public safety. The problem is how easily that same system can later be turned against ordinary people, and especially the children we are raising. I do not want my kids growing up in a country where their every movement is logged, stored, and potentially weaponized. Our task is not only to manage the crimes of today, we are deciding what kind of America they will inherit. As Benjamin Franklin once famously said, those who would give up essential liberties to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. My plea for Canyon County city councils and legislators is this: please consider carefully what kind of America our kids should live in. Despite the benefits, please protect their future freedom at any cost. Now, as some of you may know, Bend had some Flock automated license plate readers at the north and south ends of town. They have, as of January 9th, they chose not to renew that contract, and then it expired, I think, in March or May, I can't remember. And that was a wise decision. Shortly after that, the city manager had announced that he was going to exchange those Flock cameras for Axon cameras. So even though the city got rid of those, there was a process in place where legally they didn't even have to bring this in front of council because the purchase agreement was under the threshold where the council had to view it, and they could just tack that onto an existing Axon contract. If you don't know what Axon is, Axon holds 85% of the market share nationally for police technology. Technology such as they started out with tasers, they branched out into body-worn cameras. Now they're doing in-fleet, inside their cruisers, ALPR systems, as well as stationary ones. And they've, I think they recently purchased Skydio drones. And those drones can also be equipped with tasers, which that's a scary thought.
Partnership.
It's a partnership. Okay. So if you hear the term Flock in here or on the news, I want you to immediately equate that to Axon, because that's what's being used here in Bend. What else? Next slide, probably.
The Flock cameras are still like up in town, and they've been shown that they can remotely activate them, Flock cam. And so I'm wondering if the city doesn't have a contract with them anymore, why are the cameras still up? You know?
Are you positive about that?
Yeah, I'm positive.
And,
Flock has been shown to be able to remotely activate these cameras.
no, I understand that part. I mean, the fact that they're up.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Let me jump in here, because I kind of have been here. So most likely what you're looking at are businesses. There are businesses that have arrangements with Flock, a lot of major retailers. I don't believe that all of like the original list that I saw exist here in Bend, but I know across the state. I mean, again, I don't know about locally, I'm not sure about Winco, but I know that like Lowe's had them,
Those has two.
Lowe's has two. Yeah, there's a
Walmart
few.
on the south side.
Yeah. And so we'll actually probably end up getting into this a little bit later, so, and I'm gonna have to like share this with Jonathan on this point. There are organized retail, by the way, I don't really do public speaking very well, so it's like interrupting with my train of information here.
Orca.
Yeah, CORCA, Combat Organized Retail Crime. So there are these, I feel like I'm jumping ahead here. I feel like I'm jumping ahead.
That's.
Can we go back to the slide and then we'll jump in?
Yeah, we can touch back on that. Can you go to the next slide?
That is huge. I want to make sure we get to that.
Thank you.
So what is an ALPR? We've got, camera captures images of vehicles they pass, software reads the characters on the plate, the plate time, location, and images are recorded, and the plate data can be searched and shared. What I want people to understand is if we vote to allow these things, even Axon, there are processors and sub-processors that are used to store this data and infer things from it. And when I say processors and sub-processors, I'm talking about Amazon Cloud, whatever the vendor used. Many of these vendors are surveillance technology. They acquire companies or partner with them. So whatever systems were created initially, like here locally, the Bend Connect or Connect Bend, the camera systems that they have where, $10,000 of our tax money went into up to 10 retailers such as Lowe's, Home Depot, Safeway, Albertsons, Fred Meyer, Walmart, to outfit those with cameras so that the police would have 24/7 unfettered access to them. And does it serve a legitimate purpose? Is there an actual reduction in retail theft there? And why are our taxpayers' dollars going to protect these huge multi-billion-dollar corporations? I'm getting off track here. Here's the deal. In the last 8 months, I have spent 5 to 10 hours a day researching this stuff. And there's so much that I want to get out. And I've had 5 opportunities to give 2-minute public comments in front of the council. And I've created a procurement policy framework and a surveillance ordinance that if they implement these things, they will protect the citizens and the privacy of the citizens. And for the most part, it's crickets. Occasionally I get an email back that basically, there's not much that they're doing. And I understand they're busy because they've got developers come in, they've got these housing issues they've got to solve, they've got all these other things on their plate. And there's nobody on their staff that's dedicated to protecting the citizens from the corporations they're getting in bed with. And so we feel that the only way that they're going to listen to us is if we come together as a community, learn about these things, teach them about these things, and then proactively get in front of them and say, we're not going to stand for some of this. We want our future to be brighter. What kind of world are we building here? I am way off track. Okay, ALPR. Next slide, please. There's 2 forms of ALPRs. You got your stationary ones, like they had with Flock, and they tried to put in with Axon. And we were able to, 7 of us or 12 of us went down to council, and the mayor told the city manager that this will come before council with public comment, which is great. That means we have to go fight it again, and then the next system we have to go fight. And if they don't adopt a procurement policy framework that shows that, in order for these systems to be implemented, a contract is signed. And we've got a little guide that says, check this box before you sign the contract, check this one, where's the sub-processor data being stored, who has access to it, or is it multi-factor authentication? Is there end-to-end encryption set up in such a way that only the city has access to it, and not another corporation? Because once it's out of the city's hands and on a hard drive somewhere, the only recourse, if that corporation chooses to do something else with it, is a lawsuit after the fact. And who among us is going to go up against a multi-billion-dollar corporation to sue them because they wronged us? Speaking of sub-processors and data, it's more than just ALPR, right? A couple weeks ago, I had an email exchange with some guy in Public Works and the mayor a little bit where Clara water systems was being implemented. There was signing a contract with it, and they just had smart water meters. And you think, what can a smart water meter do, right? Well, Clara has access to the data, and this is every hour your house gets pinged for water usage statistics. Clara holds on to that data for 25 months. That's 3 years plus. No, 2 years plus. And the city retains that data indefinitely. So what can be inferred by having your house hit with a reading of your water usage? You can infer what times you're normally at home and when you're away. You can infer if you've had a large gathering. And when you combine that with your play being read everywhere and some of the information you can buy from the data brokers off your smartphone, these patterns of life that are being tracked on you or gathered and retained on you, it's something that we shouldn't want, especially when you add historical search of data, which is why one of the Privacy Alliance's things, especially with ALPRs, is to get the data retention levels low. The state level, or the state requirement right now, the maximum is 30 days. You can infer a lot of information about a person's pattern in 30 days. And keep in mind, the majority of Oregonians are law-abiding. So why do we want to give away this information to third-party companies that are making a profit off of it? Okay, next slide.
Sorry for the lies. I don't know what their problem is.
Okay, good uses, investigations, stolen or wanted vehicles, traffic and parking enforcement, public safety alerts, administrative uses, audit reporting, other agency requests, that's the scary part. Let's just go to the next slide. I'm going to try and keep on track. So they collect license plate number, daytime location, vehicle attributes, like if you've got dents on your car, they can identify you with that. Here locally, I was told off the record that they can search for a Raiders bumper sticker and find that vehicle. And let's see, direction of travel. Right now, they're looking at 2 fixed ALPRs. That is nothing. But these systems tend to creep rapidly. In Atlanta, Georgia right now, there are 1 camera for every 8 citizens. That is insane. Confidence score and reads. We'll get into AI and how inferences are made from those. And may include camera ID with. These are just technical stuff. Next slide, please. Okay, one observation at a fixed location, that's what we would have. Entrance and exit of the town is what they're starting off with. That's a pilot program. Flock was a pilot that they started because of a grant. Now, Flock has, I've read some of the documentation that they put out to their marketing teams, where they teach them how to go into cities. 2 things. One is, this is how you apply for grants. 2 is, this is how you deal with the council members when the public comes and offers resistance. That's scary too, because they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Actually, when Senate Bill 1516, the ALPR bill, was here at the state level, Flock and Axon both had lobbyists there that are paid full-time. And their job is to quell the people like us that introduced the legislation in a meaningful way. And they gutted it and made it almost useless. And when I talked to the chief legal officer of Flock about this, he basically lied in my face and said he had no idea that was happening. Next slide. Would anybody else like to jump in?
This is supposed to be a panic. Sorry.
So obviously, a camera is kind of just like a foot in the door. And it goes from collecting observation, and a vendor agency platform stores it. And then you search and alert functions, they make it usable. And authorized users are connected, or connected systems may extend access beyond the person who captured it. So say, like the Deschutes County Sheriff or Bend Police, they have access, their information is stored on Axon servers, which are not local, and those can be accessed by other governmental agencies. ICE, for example, which is definitely the biggest concern right now for quite a few people, or most people in general, or police misuse. There are instances of them, like the police officers stalking their girlfriends or their boyfriends, and or like people they see running the same license plates. The guy that just got arrested, and I don't know if it was Minnesota or somewhere, but they used the flock cameras to track him going from a state where cannabis was legal to where he lives and it's not, and they arrested him based on just that alone. So a camera is really just a foothold and a foot in the door. Yes.
We can do that. Yeah.
Let me walk back there really fast.
That's all right, I can be loud. I just wanted to point out too, that I think Flock has a pilot program right now where they're not only catching, images, but they can use, devices like Stingray to capture all of the, cell phones and electronic devices that are in, the vehicle, and they record that along with the license plate data.
Yeah, what you're talking about is signal traces by a company called Leonardo. It's, as far as we know, hasn't been rolled out, at least by, yeah, here.
East Coast, yes.
East Coast, really? Okay. All right. So it's rolling out past then, because when I last did research, it was not. Yeah, that's, I don't believe that it's, no, actually, I'm gonna pass this off to Jonathan.
Are there any other questions?
No, I want to continue with that one.
Okay.
Just,
So you're aware, that technology that they're using has been used by marketing companies for a long time. You walk into the store, your cell phone emits a Bluetooth signal, and they know you're there. This is basically, it's a really similar thing that's going on there. They're just attaching it to cameras. Speaking of cameras, Axon just created a thing called light post. If you think about, there are 60 million light posts across the country that light up our streets at night. And on top of that, there is a sensor that can tell when the sun goes down. And they have created a system that fits into that same socket and turns every light post into an ALPR system with other capabilities. And there is a big push right now to roll that out. So this is what we're up against. There are for-profit companies that want cameras everywhere. And not only that, Axon wants access to those cameras. They want, when you call, I watched Axon Week, the keynote speeches. They are trying to roll out everything being processed through AI systems. So when you call 911, you get an AI operator. Is that who you want to entrust your life to when you're in a life or death situation? Right now, Google, I think it was a month or so ago, they admitted there's a 7 to 9% error rate when you do a search into Google and you get an AI-generated result. Billions and billions of searches, that's a lot of errors per hour that unsuspecting people think they're getting real information. Now apply that to your 911 operator. Holy cow. Was there another question?
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Thank you. I was curious if you know and could share how many Axon cameras are active in Bend right now, and if you know that for any of the surrounding areas like Redmond and Lapine.
72, 76? in-fleet vehicle called Axon Fleet 3 cameras, the name of the technology they're using. Redmond, you know, started out with just me, and then me and another person, and then me and a few more, and then we started Ben Privacy Alliance, and we're working towards, we registered CentralOregonPrivacy.org. We're working towards expanding. I'm just starting to look into Redmond and other areas, but it is really hard to keep up just on one city's agenda packets and go through, like, when La Pine had their data center thing, it was like 800 pages to go through there and all the contracts and all that. It's a lot of work. We need more people on our team.
Yeah, in Redmond, they have like two different kinds. So some are speeding cameras and some are stoplight cameras. And I think there's 7 total, and that doesn't include what's in their vehicles, right? So they have what's in their vehicles, they have what's on their bodies, and they're all tying in together, right? So all that information now, you call 911, you get Axon Express, right? So, and then they tie into the cop to wherever they're going, right? So all that stuff becomes part of that record, so.
I will say there was an online comment. Move my mouse. There was an online comment that said they can confirm that Stingray has been used in Southern California for many years.
I actually want to address that real quick because signal trace, who was talking about that in the back, signal trace and stingrays are not the same thing. Signal trace is just capturing like errant network packets that are going by. The big difference is that stingrays are actually, first off, that's just a generic term that covers all the different types of cell site simulators, I think is the word for it. And again, I apologize because I have to like crunch so many things all the time. It's hard to get it together. So what they'll do, and this is frequently used to surveil protesters and stuff, is they'll set up basically a fake cell site nearby a protest, and it used to be like a whole setup. Now my understanding is they can even run it on a phone. And when we make phone calls or get texts and everything, our phones are set just automatically aggregate or connect to whatever cell site is closest to us, or like high signal, etc. And so a stingray basically hijacks that process and forces everyone in a certain range to send their data through that stingray. And then they can just like mass collect information, dragnet surveillance. I actually, just to kind of go off a couple of things that were missed here, I really want to talk about the software capabilities because, you know, a lot of times when, and this isn't just with surveillance, there's a lot of things where they get sold something and ends up being something more a lot farther along the road. And I think this is important in 2 aspects. First off, it's easy to just say, hey, we've got like, you know, it's not easy to say, but an opponent could say easily that these are, you know, good methods for policing and it gives us access now, but later on you have no idea what people are going to do with the data, you have no idea what people are going to do with the infrastructure, you don't know if the administration is going to change, you know, so you might think you're safe right now, and all of a sudden the administration changes on you and you have a partisan issue because now who you are isn't okay anymore. But there's also a really big question of like, so like facial recognition technology, and maybe there's something new that's popped up recently, isn't like a big part of this story yet, and especially as far as Axon goes. Is it okay if I just keep rambling for a minute? All right. Bring me back to home if I go too far. So like my big concerns with facial recognition as far as Axon goes, because I feel like the pressure needs to move from Flock to Axon as we get like more and more concerned and more mobilization around Flock. Let's see here. So Axon purchased a company called CoreSight AI. CoreSight AI is documented to have been tested and built from data being run in Gaza and the West Bank. So it found its way eventually down the line to being purchased by Axon, and it was run in Edmonton, Canada. That was their first test with facial recognition technology, and it's really ironic because their previous ethics board I'm gonna get the year wrong, so I'm just not gonna try, but their previous ethics board, I think, was like 12 or 13 members, and they did a whole test on whether facial recognition technology was advanced enough for the company to use it safely and ethically, and they decided that was not the case. There's a whole story behind how that ethics board eventually fell apart, having to do with drones or tasers on drones in schools. That was I think 2020, 2019, something like that. Give me 1 second, collect myself. Yeah, so they said they weren't going to do this. They were told not to do this, and they decided anyway. So they ran their test in Edmonton. I put a bunch of time looking into it, and as far as I can tell, the same hardware that was sold to the Edmonton police force that was used for facial recognition technology are the same body 3 cameras, or the same Fleet 3 cameras that we have all throughout the U.S. And if you look at other features and how they update them and how the whole subscription stack works, all right. And how the whole subscription stack works. I'm rambling. I am. So my point here is that they can update your hardware, the hardware of these cameras, software. They don't have to go in and replace your hardware cameras. They can update them software-wise, and the same thing applies to the retailers. The retailers connect via a Fusus core, which is the same thing that Ben Connect uses for if you do one of the integrated cameras instead of one of the registered cameras, connecting yourself to the whole network.
300 integrated, 700 registered.
Yeah. And you can check that number anytime. You can go to benconnect.org, right? Yeah, something like that. So they can update.
I'll come back to it.
So with what Kev was saying here about the software updates, I track Axons, and they're numerous. I look into it once every week or two, and they're numerous. I sent out a newsletter to city council and every staff member that I had an email for. And I have an Axon Watch section, and with just a push of a button, software that's being talked about here can be implemented across the whole system. So what gets voted on and passes council or leadership at one point may not be the same system that you have a year later.
Was there a question?
You have a
Is there a requirement to notify the municipalities that Axon holds contracts with when they do a major update that changes the functionality?
There may be a requirement for the agency, like the police force, but there's not a requirement for the municipality at this point, at least not in Bend.
And it can be buried in a subscription.
Oh, it was just said here it could be buried in a subscription, which you may want to know at Axon Week, what they're pushing for, or what their end goal is the CEO said, we had so many updates to our systems and our technology this year that it took my team 2 full days to explain it to me. And we don't want to have a contract for each one of those. We want to give the municipalities one subscription, full access to our whole stack.
Your question?
So does this include the system of doorbell cameras that have been, that's being developed
So-
by the police department?
Yeah,
And are those potentially programmable by outside sources, ring cameras and that kind of stuff?
You mean by hackers, or
No.
what do you mean?
I think he means like the police or other agencies.
So Ring has a partnership with Axon. I don't know currently if they have to have registered access. Yeah, it's really, and it could be a remote toggle switch. Any device, if you have a camera in your house that connects to the cloud connects to your camera, right? So these things are two-way. And software updates, you get them in all kinds of things, whether you realize it or not, they just happen. And Windows does their update Tuesdays. Sometimes you have to push a button, sometimes you say do it automatically. The Ring doorbell cameras are the same. Back there?
Databases can be kept for multiple of years. Is it open to the Freedom of Information Act?
Whose database? If it's a private company, no. If it's a government,
Under stored for months or multiple of years. Where is it stored? Question, and is it open to the Freedom of Information Act?
the Freedom of Information Act and public records requests are tough. They're expensive, and there's a lot of pushback from people. Like, just to get the list of software that Bend uses and the police department, that costs some money and time and effort. There've been, it's just tough. So it depends on the type of request you have. If you're, and who you're asking it of. The farther you get out away from the local level and into state and national, good luck.
Does anybody else have questions?
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. It was really exciting that we got block removed in Bend, but there are 2 fixed block cameras in Sun River right at the brink of Bend that I feel passionate about, and I guess I just want to open that topic.
So I saw a Reddit post a few days ago.
Just, what do you think the move forward is?
So Sun River, their governance operates a little differently than Bend's does. They do have 2 cameras. Are you a user of Reddit at all?
I am, we've met on Reddit before.
Okay, on this topic?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say for you, if you're the one that made the 2 posts about this on Reddit, then you should look into Senate Bill 1516 and the transparency requirements there and try to push that angle. Because and I'm sorry, right after I read that post, I went on a camping trip and preparing for this, and the next push for Senate Bill 1516 and trying to learn about data centers, because I heard a 30-second conversation that I think the data center may become the Bend eventually. Don't quote me on that, that's just a hunch. But something was mentioned at an enterprise zone tax abatement conversation about having to wait until 90 days after the moratorium ends in 2027, it'd be September 2027, before they could have that conversation. But there are local avenues around that. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna add, I think over by the website, Safeway, there is a sign for Fort Rock Data Center.
For what?
Fort Rock Data Center. I haven't looked a whole lot into it, but there is a sign.
By the West Side Safeway?
Yeah.
A sign for it or a site?
There's like a whole building that has like a, this, like building, like entryway sign. It's right under the,
Is it an existing one, or is it like you see construction?
it's built.
It's built, yeah, there's existing, yeah.
Yeah, there's like the Cambria Hotel, and then behind that, there's a big building with no windows. I assume it's that.
Understood.
I'm bad with location, but yeah, there are existing ones, so yeah.
You are correct, that is the data center you're thinking about.
Les, you're good.
speaking of ALPR Lake Flock down the Sun River, those observations that those cameras make, they are valuable in a sense, because they can be connected. It can be compared with vehicle records, law enforcement information, other camera observations, cloud systems, or analytical platforms. Those connections can add context about people, vehicles, places, times, and events, and then all of a sudden, it's not just your license plate. The governance problem is not any single line on this diagram, it is its cumulative power. Each additional connection can make a once limited record more revealing and easier to repurpose. Such as the guy that had his car tracked and was arrested going to buy weed in a state that it was legal in. Ben's ALPR story, this timeline is deliberately careful because the events are not all the same kind of decision. In 2022, council approved the broader Axon fleet camera procurement. Later records document mobile ALPR capability in Ben's fleet environment. Flock stationary cameras entered the local debate in 2025 and were turned off in January of 2026. Then the discussion shifted toward Axon's stationary ALPR, Policy 428, and public oversight. A date on this timeline does not necessarily mean the council has held a separate vote on the capability listed beneath it. That distinction is central to the next slide. License plate readers are already operating in Ben police vehicles. Most of us know that, but they have a greater impact than just your license plate, right? They can capture you, they can capture the area in which you're driving, and it can create questions around that unnecessarily and unjustly. There are two facts here, and I want to separate them. First, the public record shows council approved a broader Axon fleet camera procurement. Second, later records document ALPR capability operating within that fleet environment. What I have not found clearly established in the reviewed public record is a separate public policy decision in which ALPR activation itself was presented and authorized as a distinct capability. That is a governance question, not an accusation about motive. Software can add material capabilities to hardware that the public thought it already understood.
I want to recap that. So, contract was signed, council voted on it, but because the monetary threshold was below a certain amount, which I think is $250,000. Quarter million, yeah. The ALPR functionality was able to be procured, added without a vote. So that's something to think about, and why Ben needs a citywide surveillance ordinance.
I just want to jump in here and I want to talk about procurement policies and how this has actually been, this is how Axon has spread. I mean, we're talking 85%. I can't remember if it was actually the whole police market or just body cameras or tasers specifically, but the way they got so widespread was they took advantage of these procurement policies. They got, they'll do like a Department of Justice grant to get the first part in, and then they'll use that to get a vote out of city council to get that foot in the door. And they use a whole subscription pipeline process where they just, we've kind of heard, we've already talked about a little bit, where they'll start chipping in these little, like more and more until you have this whole stack. I mean, October 2024 Officer Safety Plan 10 Premium Bundle was a 6-0 council vote, only one excused, and it was $2,555,000, then some change. And then after that, just boop, 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 and then here we go.
I'm not reading. I'm done reading. I thought I would need notes, so I created a bunch. But here's the ecosystem. We've got a proposed or debated stationary ALPR. This has been stopped at the city level, or paused at least until it's brought before council. At a county level, with some good emails, the sheriff decided not to put Axon in their vehicles, which is the mobile police, the LPR. Body worn fleet cameras. Now, there's something interesting about those. Those are evidence collecting cameras. After a political party meeting, I went to the after thing at McMillan's, and everybody left, and I stayed. And I ran into a group of people who were prosecutors. They were having some kind of prosecutor convention, and I said, let me ask you about Axon. And they said they've got some major concerns with the fact that the dates on the evidence that's coming through don't always match what the police report says, and there's evidentiary issues there. They're really concerned about Axon having a monopoly, and there was one other thing I can't remember
Draft
right
one.
now. What's that?
Draft one.
Is that the
The,
AI?
so, yeah, the AI.
Oh yeah, AI transcribing body cam audio and even creating police reports. And there's somewhere I read that the initial transcription at some point can be deleted, so after the police report's written, you can't get back to the original.
It's designed that way. It's
Yeah.
actually designed so you can't go back and audit it. You have to, yeah, yep.
So we got Connect-In Fusus, which that's in the retail stores right now. City Brigada cameras, that's a whole nother ball of wax that I'm having a hard time. I know we've got at least one and potentially up to, I think, 10 drones and drone video. Those drones, just so you know, the camera systems, one of the software pieces that's going to come up in the later slide allows to create 3D maps. So if you have a large piece of property and you think it's behind a fence and you're safe, that potential is there. And I'm not saying the police are doing this, but it's there. That's just Axon. Next slide, please. Holy cow. This is, so I recently got access to a heavily redacted file that has all the software that the city uses, the AI systems that they're using, software that they're using, and some of the police software. You guys take some time to read through those, and if you have any questions, ask me, but I'm just getting my feet wet on this one.
So is this all, most of it is Axon?
The police are heavily Axon integrated. There's some stuff that's like no big deal. Administration, investigations management, I mean, background investigations, some of that stuff I'm not too concerned about. I mean, is everyone to go to the next slide? I have a question for the audience. Are any of you here, do you work for the city? Okay, how about for Representative Levy's office, Representative Crope's office, Senator Rodman's office? Okay. Every one of them got an invite, just so you know. And this is after me going to council meeting after council meeting, sending them weekly or every other week newsletters explaining the surveillance and the concerns with that surveillance, and begging them to open a conversation about this topic. So these are your leaders, not here for what should really freaking matter. Okay, retail surveillance, we touched upon that. I'm not going to go into this much. Not only are the Fusus camera systems in there, but those camera systems, every retailer has a different privacy policy. And some of them use facial recognition. Some of them, Walmart just patented a motion detection. They're being sued right now for, what was it? Oh, they can identify who you are based on, they've been collecting your voice imprint. So if you call them, they know who you are. They can tell if you're agitated when you call. I mean, scary stuff. These are the people that we spend our money with, and they're collecting this stuff on us. I just saw a thing yesterday about how heavy users of McDonald's have 100-page dossiers on their customers and how to get access to that. Okay, next slide. Oh, yeah. Here's Jim.
Thanks, Jonathan. So this slide is kind of like where I get emotional. Like, if he gets emotional about certain things, this is where I get emotional because I really don't have much trust in law enforcement. Misuse is not hypothetical, it has been documented. The cases on this slide fall into different evidentiary categories: confirmed disciplinary cases, reported allegations, litigation records, and audit findings. So, I mean, I don't want to flatten them into one bucket. The recurring pattern is more important than any one headline. Trusted users sometimes use access for personal purposes, retaliatory purposes, or reasons that do not survive scrutiny. And weak oversight can hide that misuse. So this is kind of where I'm at with that. And you may have noticed that those little cameras popping up around Central Oregon, the ones from Flock and Axon that snap a photo of your license plate every time you drive by. They're sold to us as crime-fighting tools, pure and simple. But here's the thing about powerful tools. They don't use themselves. Real people with badges operate them, and we're seeing a pattern of officers taking these surveillance systems and turning them into personal tracking devices. Now, these companies are linking everything together: license plate readers, body cameras, drones, and even 911 call data into one giant system that can follow you from your morning coffee to your kid's school pickup, right, all day, basically. This isn't a theory, it's happening right now. In Ohio, 2 officers resigned after one was caught searching his domestic partner's license plate 46 times while on leave. The other searched the plate 53 times. In Indiana, citizens discovered police had logged 63 searches against his vehicle over the course of a year, just because they felt like watching him. And then there's a case that should really worry everyone. In Texas last year, law enforcement used Flock's national network of more than 83,000 cameras across 34 states, including California, Washington, and Oregon, to track down a woman who had self-administered morning after medication. The sheriff's office claimed they were searching for her safety, said they were worried she might be bleeding. But court documents later proved otherwise. Police were actually conducting a death investigation, and they discussed with prosecutors whether they could charge the woman with a crime on the same day they ran the Flock research. This data isn't just being used reactively, it's being used preemptively. Flock and Axon are building systems that analyze our driving patterns to predict who might commit a crime. The Border Patrol has a predictive intelligence system that sifts through license plate data to flag abnormal travel patterns. Once flagged, local police get tipped off and pull drivers over for what they call pretext stops, without ever telling the driver they were profiled by a computer. A specific concern for us here in Oregon, we are a sanctuary state, which means our local agencies are supposed to protect our communities from unwarranted federal immigration enforcement. But reports show that despite that status, some local agencies have still found ways to share license plate data with ICE. The loophole is unacceptable. Our surveillance systems paid for with our tax dollars should not become a backdoor for federal agents to target our immigrant neighbors. So I've got 3 asks for you today, specifically for the Bend Police Department and our City Council. Nothing crazy. If everyone does just one of these, it will help. First ask is, ask your City Council and the Bend Police Department to require mandatory regular audits of those using these systems and why. We need to know if officers are searching for their neighbors, exes, or anyone else without a legitimate case attached. The technology exists to track misuse. We just need to actually use it. Second, and this one is critical, ask the Bend Police to ban warrantless sharing of this data with federal agencies like ICE. Oregon is a sanctuary state, but that doesn't mean much if our own police department is quietly handing over license plate records to immigration enforcement. We need a clear binding policy that closes that loophole for good. No sharing without a warrant, period. And third, ask for a simple annual transparency report. Nothing fancy, just a public summary of how many times the system was used, what for, who accessed the data, and whether any misuse was found. Because trust isn't built by cameras, it's built by accountability. That's it, just 3 asks. Let's keep Central Oregon a place we can trust. Thanks for listening to my rant.
We have a question in the back.
I was gonna mention that I don't think the current Bend police policy requires a warrant to look at the cameras. And then also, I heard a story about how Flock was showing like footage from like a gymnastics gym to a potential client. And so like, they just access the cameras, these private companies and people who work there, and we don't know who's doing nefarious things there.
So I used to work for a security company where, so my job was to train the technicians on how to install the cameras and all the way through the process of connecting them to the cloud, open up the ports through the router and train the customers on the app. And then I was the primary troubleshooter for that company. And they did a lot of cloud-based camera systems, and we didn't have a way an automated way when I started to tell if the camera systems were down. So for a while, my job was to go into every account and check every camera. So Flock definitely has that capability. I did work with the engineers of the monitoring company, and we found an automated solution to where the cameras got pinged. If the ping didn't come back, then a monitor would get a pop-up on the screen saying this camera's down. We'll check. If it was down, they could contact the owner. So there's a solution for everything that doesn't require human intervention. I wanted to tack on to the abuse. I don't remember the city, but a council member had not voted or voted against one of the police officers or the police department to get an increase in wage. And what that started was a chain of events where police officers started searching for his vehicle with the automated license plate reader system. They waited until they found his vehicle in front of a bar. They sent an officer to them, got him coming out of the bar. He blew the legal limit and he got arrested over that. They messed with the wrong person. The council member is now suing them. But it is impossible to create the architecture of a surveillance system and completely eradicate abuse of the system at the same time. Oh, there we go.
Hey, Jay, can I jump in on the thing we were talking about before? If I can gather myself. And I don't want to get too far ahead because I forget what's ahead on some of the slides. But we're talking like a lot about why it should matter here. And we're talking about abuses that Jim just brought up. The Real Organizing Project, and I think probably plenty of you probably saw this in the source. There are 279 federal queries against those SWAT cameras during the first 3 weeks that it was up here. And in a lawsuit, and it's buried in my notes somewhere, but in a lawsuit, the Real Organizing Project, I believe is still going on with, there were 1.4 million hits to Oregon State Police databases, and that's a really significant issue to me. We're talking about it being a sanctuary city and everything, and we also passed Senate Bill 1587 this year, and it's supposed to, am I jumping ahead? You give me a look like I am.
No, when you're down, and I want to talk about the county and that interaction and what you.
Yeah. No, you go. Oh, yeah, the whole, yeah.
That station.
They were prepared for us. So, 1587 required is that data brokers, of course, off the top of my head now, it's, as I'm talking about, it involves data brokers and reporting having to do with immigration. The way that the county was kind of prepared for us is they had Axon's lawyers write a letter basically excusing themselves from being a data broker. And it's really confusing to me how someone who aggregates and collects that much data isn't, and then gives access to it to third parties is not considered a data broker. But for some reason, they don't fall under that. There's also Senate Bill 4080 that's supposed to protect people like me who need gender affirming care from being surveilled during that process. So like we as a state are like supposed to be very strongly set up around protecting vulnerable populations from being surveilled and harassed in these ways, and yet, you know, we're still having this occur. And so I just like, I feel like this is so important when we're talking about why it matters here, is that we have put forward that these are our ideals and how we want to, you know, have community and share, and all this is sidestepping around it, so we should be pissed about it.
That is exactly the example that all of us should be thinking of, along with all of the other marginalized communities, the BIPOC community, the LGBTQ community, and all of the minorities, and our immigrant neighbors, and our friends, because this doesn't just apply to all of the legal citizens and the people doing things the right way. They're using it against others that don't deserve it, that are just trying to make a living and have a better life for themselves, and they're not doing anything wrong in that process.
Next slide, please. You know, after this is over, I'm gonna put all this onto the, if you go to, there's one that's been private slides. So, I'm gonna put the slide deck up.
While Jay's talking about that, I want to jump in because I had more and it was lost in my notes. More reason why we should care here is, so Woodburn has Oregon's largest immigration, largest Latino community, 31% immigrants, and they decided to remove their cameras after immigration authorities accessed their cameras, and it's just like, I feel like that's connected, and I don't want to get deeply into it right now unless it comes up later. But I think that, like, if you're looking for more reason and the history of this, and you want to dig into how immigration enforcement and surveillance are connected in the state, look into Operation Black Rose and the use of Palantir software Elite and also Mobile 405. And we can go more on that later. But I just want to bring it up.
If you look at the top right over there, see how Microsoft was reported to have hosted roughly 11,500 terabytes of intercepted Palestinian phone call data, about 200 million hours of audio in European data centers. Now, how well did that work out for the Palestinians? And then, what was it, the cameras used in, was it Iran? The leaders got.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You,
So
This isn't like something that maybe we're super worried about here in Bend, although I can argue against this too, I guess. When we assassinated Ayatollah Khomeini here recently, murdered, whatever. So the way that they targeted that was actually Unit 8200, Israeli Signal Intelligence Unit. They have hacked the traffic light cameras, the same kind of ones that Verra Mobility has here in Bend. They hacked that for years. You can find Mossad admitting to it. And that was how they actually narrowed down his location for when they did that. So, you know, like, even if it's like, oh, well, the average person, the civilian, isn't gonna, like, be able to get past this encryption and be able to hack this camera, well, believe that there's state actors that can. And, you know, if you think, oh, Ben's not really relevant, well, then go and look at Twin Falls, Idaho, go look at Springfield, and see how these, like, massive social media engineered campaigns can affect the perspectives of a local area. And if they can do that kind of social media campaign that just totally twists the whole scenario upside down, I don't want to go into a long explanation of what happened in each of those places, but, you know, the eating dogs thing and the whole all the bomb threats, or there was an immigration issue in Twin Falls that, like, was core around that. If they can do all that, there's no reason why they can't. If they had a reason to, they could get in your cameras locally.
I think to recap that on the hack, so systems designed for public safety can also be penetrated by foreign adversaries or just local hackers, or, I mean, there are 3 major data breaches a day in this country right now of huge databases. All your usernames, passwords, a bunch of stuff is out there on the dark web for sale. We can't stop that. Like, how many here, by show of hands, have had your bank tell you that they have lost access to your data or were involved in a hack? You know, and then what do they?
Or your healthcare provider, or
Yeah,
like anyone.
And they say, here are 7 to 12 steps you can take to protect your data. Instead of saying, we got it covered for you, we already have your information, so we're gonna sign up for all this stuff. You know, they're not protecting you there. Why do we want to build onto a system that can see you as well? Question?
So, just to bring this back to Ben, how long is the data stored in Ben? Or not in Ben, but for the Ben cameras?
For the LPR units, 30 days.
30 days is the limitation?
And
that's set by our city councilor?
That's set by the state.
By the state?
And so, in...
428.
What's that?
428. Section 428. The Bend Police Department was somewhat forced through our efforts and through SB 1516 passing at the end of the year. They were forced to update their policy around LPRs. It's Section 428. You can find it in Granicus. You can always ask
Howard
for it.
EMS.
What? Oh, it's
Howard
Howard
EMS.
Oh, I'm sorry, Howard EMS. So we have an updated policy produced by the police about how to use LPR. It was 90% is what Krantz said. Chief Krantz said we're 90% in line with the encryption requirements and everything from Senate Bill 1516.
I want to add on to that. So yes, 30 days, that is the state requirement maximum. And so Ben has chosen to do the maximum.
Okay.
Right now, the minimum requirements nationwide is 2 hours. That's a good one.
That's in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, 72 hours to me is reasonable.
Jay, will you talk too about the encryption requirements as far as 1516 and why we didn't feel that was sufficient?
Show of hands, who knows what encryption is? Okay, so in Senate Bill 1516, they're requiring that there's end-to-end encryption, but they don't define what encryption is. They don't require the agency to be the key holder of that encryption. And so, really not a secure system that way. It's not completely closed loop, and it doesn't make it technologically impossible for the vendor that has access to this data outside of the police agency to not be able to view and manipulate that data or use it to train AI systems, which for whatever reason, our council is granting these companies the permission to use our data they collect on us that's paid for with our tax dollars to train their AI systems, which that should be stopped, in my opinion.
Another trick, I'm gonna jump in, because another trick on this is they'll make it look like it's really nice on paper, and then on their side, they're like, oh wow, this is not great. So my brain stopped. I'm so sorry, my brain stopped.
I'll come back to it. Oh, we have a question.
Yeah, I had another part to that. So we replaced our flock cameras with Axons, and that's the physical cameras have been replaced, or?
It's been.
It's been Axon cameras in the fleet vehicles since 2023, if my memory serves.
But the 4 cameras to?
Gone.
Those are, the 4 cameras they just implemented are
Yeah.
Vera Mobility. They're automated traffic enforcement cameras that send you tickets in the mail.
Okay, but the north and south end cameras?
Those are
Gone, they're supposed to be gone.
They're supposed to be gone, okay. And what are the capabilities, the differences between the flocks and the Axons? Do they do facial recognition versus, like I listened to an interview with the CEO of Flock this week on All In podcast, he went on that. He said Flock doesn't do any facial recognition. Does Axon have any capabilities that is beyond Flock cameras?
I don't think that currently the systems that we have in place have facial recognition.
Okay.
The ecosystem that they're building with AI controlling everything from cradle to grave, basically,
Yeah.
facial recognition will be a part of that. If you go on YouTube, you can find Axon. I would recommend going, since Axon's was here, going and looking at Axon Week 2026. And just the keynote address. And it's about an hour, and you'll have a really good understanding.
I don't know if you've missed it before, but no, there is not. I think if there is facial recognition rolled out in US, I think it was by New Orleans. But it's definitely not here. I was talking earlier, Coresight AI is, Coresight AI, sorry, I was get Coresight confused. Coresight AI is the company that Axon purchased. So if they're using it, it'll be through that. So if you want to like dig deeper, it sounds like you're, like listening to podcasts and find out more about it. That's where you want to look as far as whether Axon, when they roll it out and how they roll it out here. I think that like one big thing here is we're talking a lot about the state here and what the state is doing compared to what corporations are doing are not necessarily the same track. Like they're selling their products to the state. So is facial recognition technology used in this country? Yeah.
Clearview AI and data broker purchases are being, the databases are being combined, so you're able to infer a lot more. Are there questions over here?
Yeah, you guys mentioned DeepLock, this, like, why you held this week, right? So I believe the gentleman that was here before mentioned it, and now these cameras, are they just not updating their database because they still show those flock cameras?
Oh,
Or do they still
the
exist?
have I been blocked? Have I been blocked map?
Yeah, the DeepLock map that they have on their website. And what I had heard, and this was a while ago, but sure, they said, oh, we're not doing the program anymore, but the cameras didn't come down. And they're still on their DeepLock website for that map. So I'm just wondering if you guys are saying.
That map is crowdsourced, so there's not somebody that's the head of DeepLock going through and verifying all of this. That's something that I actually have the capability to find an accurate answer for you if you want to connect afterwards. It may take me a day or two, but I have a guy.
Yeah.
I do have some concerns. My son, a little bit over a week ago, did receive one of those citations.
I got one too.
He received one of those citations, and it clearly was shown that he was at fault in that. There was facial recognition there. However, yesterday, he received another citation. And in this citation, I have it right here with me, it showed facial recognition, looked very similar to him, but when we blew the picture up, it absolutely was not him. It also showed the license plate of the truck that he was caught driving. He doesn't have a truck. He never drove that truck. So I have concerns about that.
That
So-
makes me see it, because I flip that camera off every single day.
To your concerns, they're very valid. There have been guns drawn situations, people on the pavement over X being interpreted as a Y. And not only that, that got them on the hot list. the police pulled the car over and didn't even verify that the car, the one that's supposed to be on a hot list, the plate's from another state, and it was a motorcycle, and they still guns drawn, kids and family. So there are valid concerns. AI systems are not even close to perfect, they're prone to error.
And there was just a case where a woman was jailed for 13 days because the flock camera said this was her, and the police arrested her, and eventually it was proven that it wasn't.
Well, just to make everyone feel better in here, Vera Mobility is, since June 16th, has had a class action file against them for $1 billion from Avis Rent-A-Car. And it wasn't exactly
Can you write that down?
one of these. In fact, you want this?
I do. I'm meeting with the police captain tomorrow.
Oh, which one?
Ethan, Brian Ethan?
Oh, is that in Van? Well, I've been in Redmond and I've beat my tickets, so who wouldn't talk to me? And it was just being honest, because this company Vera is there's something else. And then actually, I was surprised that the city council of Redmond didn't even know anything about anything.
And they paid $4 million to have them installed.
So,
And they're collecting
Yeah.
40% of the revenue from the tickets that they.
And I just went up to the judge, and I think the best thing to do is, because what they want you to do is, oh, just pay half, or turn in another half, or this, that, and the other. I go, no, I'm going to court. And so, and then they lost my court stuff, and I met every cop I've met a couple on the phone, and then, all they wanted to talk about, I said, well, we weren't talking the same thing. All they wanted to talk about was just, I didn't have because what happened was, when I came to see the judge, they had lost my ticket, and then it just was gone. But I handed this to the judge, and he said, well, I'll just look at it at home. But I was amazed that the city council didn't even know how much money there was making or anything. That's just cool. That's crazy.
So, Dr. John Padfield was a state representative, like Illinois or something, Iowa, and he mentioned that he ran for office because he felt very passionately about a couple things. And then he got into office, and all this stuff came across his desk that he had no previous knowledge about, and he had to make a decision when it comes vote time. And many of these council members are looking at contracts that discuss technology that they don't have a clue about. And they're making a vote based on the people that are hired that may or may not have a clue about it either. So I can see how this stuff gets through council. And if you can think of a way to stop that other than a procurement policy framework.
But you stay at them. I went to the Redmond Police Department 3 times, because Vera wasn't working in the police department, and so I said, well, you can use your home computer. Well, I don't have a home computer. I got an iPad, and so that didn't work either. And I just went to the judge to say that, and he goes, I can't find it either. And then I actually approached the bench and talked to him about what I thought of that company.
Well, I'm glad you did
Give it
that.
up.
That's good. Was there a question up here?
I want to jump in on that actually real quick, because it always just amazes me that a city council would pass anything involving Vera Mobility. If you look into their history as Redflex, there are major bribery scandals, and the DOJ just waived it. They didn't even care. Yeah, the DOJ.
They're ignorant of it. They have no idea who they are.
So it's like no one's even doing like the basic of research on these companies before they approve.
Okay, so what's the risk here? Your privacy, your civil rights, your community values, and the future of our children. Next slide. So we've had discussions. You know, a lot of the people in my orbit say you've got to just ban these things outright, right? And that's great, but we have a whole army of corporations and leaders that don't understand, and the staff that doesn't understand, and the federal laws that are written and giving the grant money to the local communities that we're up against. And we're so few of us that maybe the only avenue where we may make some headway is to go through policies with them. Even though that may not be the desired end result, which is stop freaking spying on me. But so some of the things we need are clear policies, access controls, transparency of laws, independent audits, and community oversight. You know, it can't be the police watching themselves, or even the council staff watching themselves. There needs to be a third party involved. And CCOPS by the ACLU, I think, is a good start. Next slide, please.
I just want to jump in. I'm not jumping on that. Oh, wait, no, it means that.
Hello? Okay. Anywhere in like intelligence work, you always have someone watching. Like you always have a watchdog watching the watchdog, right? You know, there's always like a chain of people to make sure that no one else along the line is abusing it. And that's not what's going on here.
Okay, so here in the state, you've got Oregon Consumer Privacy Act. You have the right to know what personal data is collected on you. And that's how you can go to Lowe's and they will give you all the data they collected on them. Dr. John Pascal did this and found out that they knew what kind of fireplace he had in his basement. Although he'd never bought a fireplace from Lowe's and they'd never been in his basement. And so the corporations buying somebody else's database and somebody else's database and consolidation of companies, it creates a scary picture of what they have. Oregon's public records law, you can go and file a public records request. If any of you here want to help fund that or do that yourself, we would be greatly appreciative. You're protected from unreasonable searches and seizures, which many of the people that are privacy advocates feel that the LPR cameras are a violation of Fourth Amendment rights. There's been some recent Supreme Court stuff with the Chattery case that may help strengthen our cause. And then 15, 16 is the state stuff, and we're going to be revisiting that here. Got September 9th deadline to get a sponsor. Next slide, please. 30-day rule, we already talked about it. Next slide. Retention barriers, we talked about retention. Policy choices. We talked about it. Let's just keep going. Who decides what's acceptable? Right now, leaders in law enforcement and Bend, the city manager, has a lot of control there. Community members, we can only get this if we can get a surveillance ordinance pushed through to the city that makes every future surveillance type of purchase be brought before council with a period of time for public comment. Advocates and organizations, I think it's just us right now. We're all tired. Seriously. Vendors and contractors, they're kind of they've got the money to get this where they want to put it, and their expansion is rapid. There's been like 20,000 new flock cameras in the last few months. And oversight bodies, we don't really have much of that. Next slide, please.
I will say, one of my suggestions when we did go to a city council meeting was to have like a community oversight panel for specifically the like ALPR readers, all the surveillance technology that they have, and to I came to find out that they kind of have something like that with the Bend police, but not exactly just dedicated for that. But that would be the biggest ask that we would have, is to ask them directly for that oversight, and we have to show up time and again to ask for that.
See the necessity there? Use surveillance only when it's necessary to address a clearly defined public safety need. That does not mean jump on the free grant and try out the new toy. That means determine what the need is first, and then find a solution for it. And if there's something that doesn't infringe on people's civil liberties, that would be better.
And it's a great introduction to talk about pre-crime. And like predictive policing is a part of police, pre-crime, that's certainly something to talk about, but this whole architecture itself is pre-crime. So, you know, maybe back in the day when ALPR was first introduced and we're being more accepting of it, it was something you would turn on, like, hey, there's a child missing, so let's turn on all the cameras in this area so that we can find this child. That is responsive to an actual situation. This is all pre-crime because what we're doing is we're collecting mass information on innocent people without crimes necessarily having been committed, and then going back and using that data after the fact to pursue it. So I think that's just...
And the pre-crime starts locally in our real-time crime centers. It's fed to fusion centers in Oregon, that's Titan, and that can go on to federal systems and databases there. Currently, the Corca thing, Whitey sent me an email back that doesn't give me much confidence on that one, but it's going to have a direct line from retailers to straight to federal, skipping our state fusion center and even our real-time crime center. There's going to be a retail task force.
Weren't you following that on a national level? I remember, because I read off to you during one of the Hide and Speak podcasts. Yeah, there's a nationwide push for that.
So the Corca Act.
Okay, probably has been.
And it started out during Police Week at the House of Representatives, which is when it was introduced and passed there. It hasn't passed the Senate yet, but it looks like it's going to. Okay, next slide. Okay. Public notice is what we want. Public record, we want things transparent. Right now, Ben does have a form of transparency on their grant system, but what you see is the contract before they vote on it and sign it. Like the Vera Mobility contract there, what we have access to, it's got blanks for the retention period or the signature field, so you don't know who signed it. And in order to get access to that, there's another $30, $50, $100 to do the public records request. So we want that information out in the public, just as a matter of course. Next slide, please. What can you do? Please connect with us. Right on everybody's deal, there's one of these and pens. Thank you.
Are these the same as the ones that are?
Probably.
Well, it's the large sheet.
Yeah. And then we're gonna reach out to you depending on your preferred message. We like Signal because it's a little bit more secure. It's encrypted, and there's a Signal thing on there. If you scan that QR code, you go into the BPA, the Ben Privacy Alliance sandbox, where you can play with other people there. We'll get to know you, figure out a little bit about each other and how we can help each other. And then we've got other Signal groups for specific actions. We'll get you in the right group and connect with the right people to help make a difference locally. Show up at council meetings. Start looking at the agenda packets, because that's where everything happens. They release them a week or two before the meeting happens. And start learning about this stuff. Ask if you have any questions about anything. If you see something that you think is a red flag, send it our way and let us look at it and find out. Together we'll find the answer and figure out a path. And this may not happen in a week or two. It's been about a year for me, and it takes time to make some change. Next slide, please. I think we know. We're all adults, we know this conversation matters. Next slide, please. Right there, that one goes to the Ben Privacy Alliance website. But everyone has a business card in front of them that has on the back that says, email me at jonathanwestmoreland.com. Check out jonathanwestmoreland.com because that is a great research. If you actually go to research, I've got between data centers and surveillance, almost 1,000 resources there where you can go like ALPRs, 300 of those, and then select by Axon or by block, and narrow it down there. And then at the bottom of that, you'll get whatever, 100 results. You can click the plus sign on all that, and quickly read a summary of the article, and one that interests you, click the link, find the article. What I do is I download the Excel file of my selections and run it through AI to process it for me, and it makes it easy for me to answer questions quickly. Then PrivacyAlliance.org and CentralOregonPrivacy.org, they were recently registered. We are a Pleasant group here. When you go there, all you're going to see is a link to our socials, which we are just starting to develop, and to the other websites. And I think next is going to be a little video that I thought was inspiring and educational. 3 minutes, and then we're all done unless anyone has questions. Play again.
My name is Tom. Beatrin. I'm a professor at Ohio State University. My name is Dr. Beatrin. I'm a professor at Ohio State University. At the Ohio State University, my areas of expertise include crime, surveillance, policing. I've been doing this research for 14 years now, first at the University of California, and then at Yale, and now in Columbus. It is my professional opinion that FLoC is a dystopian violation of our rights. And what I mean by that is that it inverts the very nature of how police are supposed to function. So in traditional investigation, a crime is supposed to happen first, and then detectives are supposed to identify plausible suspects, and then those suspects are placed under investigation. But under FLoC, we are all, everybody in this room, every day, every time we get into our cars, we are all under investigation at all times for all crimes. Then when a crime actually does occur, the police have a list of pre-investigated suspects. That's you, that's me, that's everybody in this room who gets in a car, that's everybody in this city. So today in Columbus, our constitutional rights, especially our Fourth Amendment rights, are flagrantly violated every single day as a matter of regular government policy. Let me phrase this another way. Today I've heard a lot in these chambers about investigating crimes. I've heard that a lot. FLoC lets us investigate crimes, FLoC lets us prevent crimes. But it's my position that this is actually a misnomer. Despite what others have said here, FLoC does not investigate crimes at all. It is not a tool for investigating crimes. And that misnomer has apparently bamboozled several people in this room. FLoC is, at its very foundation, a tool for investigating pre-crime. Not crimes, but pre-crime. So others in this room have implied that we can reform FLoC, we can have FLoC and preserve our civil liberties. We can make this technology work for us. We just need to install more safeguards, we just need to install more protection, we just need guardrails that will prevent abusers from stalking their ex-girlfriends. Yet the very nature of this technology, that is, the technology as a tool for investigating pre-crime, categorically precludes that. This is not a technology that can be reformed or regulated or managed. It is not a technology that can be made righteous. On this matter, we cannot and we can never have our cake and eat it too. To believe otherwise is hubris, and to be frank, I have seen a baffling amount of hubris in this chamber today.
anybody have any final questions? Yes, sir.
I know the conversation is more central locally, but like, I think the panel member mentioned about like, intelligence gathering, stuff like that. I kind of like wonder, like, it's well known that like, government agencies like CIA, FBI, even though they're technically not supposed to do stuff like, especially the CIA domestically, but it's well known that they've done very nefarious things without that technology back decades, expanding back to the 50s to now. So I just worry, like, are they gonna, I mean, you can't oversight them at all. There's no one who oversights them. I worry about them kind of like, weaponizing that in different ways. The concerns we have, but like, they have no oversight at all. I mean, we can't even know what their budget is. I really worry about them getting out of hand, like, operations like MK Ultra, things like that, So I really worry about them.
Intel and like.
Like COINTELPRO,
yeah.
Chaos.
It sounds like you already know.
Yeah.
You're already.
No,
I know. So without jumping into history and doing this whole big thing, like, what is it? What is you're asking as far as forward? Like, are they going to use this? Because they are.
Well, I know they are using it, but like, is there anything we could try to do?
Yeah, to stop it locally so that we got this one little corner out of the wall where we're not giving them tools that they can access.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
they've already got stuff, let's not give them more. Especially if you're concerned, and you should be. Even the FBI, Section 702, I volunteered to restore the force during that when they were trying for reauthorization. I called senators and reps offices on both sides of the aisle, all across the nation, was that group trying to get that stopped. And it's still, it's stalled, so it's gonna come back.
I'm also.
Yes.
I wanted to know if we all jump on Signal and you're able to give us an indication that, there's something coming out on the city council and that we need to show up, like, in numbers, right? And if we're all able to get a heads up a couple days or a week before that something's happening, and then all of us here, or as many of us, can show up and voice something, I think that could be a powerful tool that we can use as community organizing here in Bend to be able to, say that this is not cool. If it's just Jonathan, or if it's just I showing up at Bend PD that day when we were talking to Vera, it's like 2 people show up. Okay, right, oh, that's right, Stacy too. 3 of us showing up. I mean, Bend PD's not gonna give a shit, or no one's gonna care. But this is amazing that we've got this many people here, so I think it would be awesome. Also, I want to mention that John Oliver's episode from last week, 2 weeks ago, is phenomenal. It really characterizes this space across the nation, and John Oliver does a great job of just talking about.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. You don't need to have HBO Max subscription, and it talks about the statistics of these systems are like so poor. They're like less than 1% accurate in anything that they're doing, and so that's another piece. And one last plug I'd like to make is that I'm hosting the Seeds for Liberation movie, and we're going to be drawing parallels in that movie based on how a lot of this technology is being trained in Gaza, and now it's being deployed here in the United States. And so it's all part of the surveillance system that we're trying to fight. And thank you all for showing up.
Thank you.
So, in answer, or not even an answer, just to tell you what we're working on. I mentioned automation in the past with camera systems. Well, we're also trying to work on, and we're ironing the bugs out right now, but we have a system that is going to all Central Oregon. So Cook County, Deschutes County, and grabbing the agenda packets that are available, and Madras, and giving us a summary of these are the privacy concerns, and with the names that we're gathering, when I say just working the bugs out, about a week ago we figured out how to make the first start work. And now we're reading the reports that are generated and trying to figure out how to refine it so that it works for us. And then once we figure out what municipalities people are in and we grow our network, we're gonna do exactly that. Hey guys, heads up, drones are coming your way. Hey guys, heads up, they're going to put drones in Daniel High School. Whoops, we already missed that one. You know, that kind of thing. Were there any other questions? Yes. Oh, sorry, Rondo. You're next.
Are city level policies the most effective target for these concerns as opposed to state policy, for example?
I show up at all, but you have less of a chance to impact change at the state and the federal level as an individual. You really need a coalition to at the city level, as an individual, and in small groups like this, you can really make a difference.
Are there other cities doing what Bend is doing?
There are efforts, yeah. So in Oregon, Eugene got rid of flock, Woodburn, I can't remember. Flock to me is something happening.
So I think it's like 40 cities that have kicked flock out already. And so that's a motion that you kind of want to keep moving forward. And that's why I think you're going to be here to help us do that and to help you do that. And I want to just kind of bring this back down to another dystopian thought. They have all this information for you. They sell this information to an insurance company. What's that going to do to your car insurance? Because every day you cross 97, right? So that's a way more dangerous road. And they're going to know that you cross that every day. And so that's going to go into when they factor your insurance rates. So it's not just about if you don't do anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. It's about all these other things. And this creeps into every part of your life. What you buy at the grocery store, what you buy at Lowe's, what you buy, all of this is creeping in. And at some point in time, they're going to share all this information. And then those companies that benefit from that information are going to come after you because that's what they do.
You know, to expand upon what you were asking, when you affect change in Bend, and Eugene affects change in Eugene, and Woodburn affects change there, that is what ultimately gets to the state level.
City council candidates need to be talked to about this, not just at council meetings. Show up at forums, send emails. I'm on LinkedIn. One of your mayoral candidates, by the way, our local mayor, may not be up on these subjects, but just seem like. And so I'm challenging her on it. I'm concerned about it. If you're concerned, make those emails happen, make those letters to the editor happen.
I agree with that. Council does look at every email that you send. The email address is council@bendoregon.gov. Even when they just did, I forget what their energy initiative was called, but they got 1,500 emails, and even some of them were just forms, say emails sent by different email addresses, and they took note of that. And they read everyone. Not every councilman will, as far as, what's his name, Steve Platt mentioned it was his week to handle emails. So I think one counselor looks at emails one week, every council gets a different week. So even though it says council law, it may only be viewed by one counselor on any particular week. Yes?
On the topic of like who would be good to email, do you guys have a list of like people we should
Ariel?
reach out to?
I want to say thank you for being the only person that showed up. Because I emailed all your staff. Earlier I asked, does anybody here work for the city? I emailed Croft Levy, their staff. Thank you.
I got here like that.
Oh, it's okay. You have my vote. You just got it. Sorry, what did you say?
On the topic of like who we should reach out to about these issues, do you have a list? I haven't been able to go through your websites yet, but is there like a list of people who would be good to email or call?
On what issue?
Like flock cameras, surveillance, stuff like that. Really any of these issues that you're talking about. Like, what is there a list of people like council members or city representatives or things like that that I can go look at and say, I'll go send an email to these 5 people?
These issues, you want Central 1560 address, you want Croton, Legend,
If you want to.
Someone mentioned state level and like kind of national level action earlier, and I could totally agree with Jonathan's sentiment that, you know, real power and organization happens at the local, hyper-local level. But Five Calls is an app where you can get on an app. It's called Five Calls, and it identifies some of the most like biggest things that are going against basic human rights, basic violations of social justice in the country, and I would almost guarantee that Flock is on there for surveillance and the surveillance state that's being created throughout the country. And so while I think it's much more powerful to work hyper-local, if you also have the bandwidth, then please use the Five Call apps, and that will connect you directly to our state representatives and our congressmen and women, and you can also activate that way. Thank you.
I would also, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, everybody keeps saying Flock, but Axon is coming for Flock. In my opinion, at the municipality level, Flock is a dead issue in Bend. The private companies that have it, that's a different story and has to be addressed a different way. But whenever you hear Flock, think Axon.
I would also like to say one more way locally this week that everyone can get involved. Unfortunately, we didn't have a flyer for it, but there is going to be a anti-surveillance state, anti-AI type of protest on Saturday at 2:30 at Peace Corner. And I would encourage everyone to show up. The more people, the more visibility we will have, and the more seriously we'll actually be taken.
You said this Saturday?
This Saturday at 2:30.
Okay. Be there, be square.
I just wanted to let everybody know that one of the earliest and national counter surveillance and personal liberty organizations is the Electronic Freedom Foundation. That's EFF.org. They've been around since the 80s when the FBI raided a studio and took somebody's typewriter and laptop because they are writing a book about hacking. Now they're well-funded and have been very important on the national level. So use their site as well, EFF.org.
I actually want to jump in there real quick. So, you know, I think, you know, local action is really important, and I think that, I probably actually go on full spiel about that, but if you're looking to kind of do a next step up and you have some money to spend, or you're willing to argue with a public body about fees, there are a couple places that are looking to use records requests, public records requests to get more information. One of those is the EFF. They kind of, unfortunately, I was going to create a little thing just to hand to people, but unfortunately it's kind of split up a little bit. So if you just find a camera, it doesn't matter who, like Axon, Vera, or whatever, you can upload all of that in DFlock. It's not just for Flock cameras. There's a tag in there that you can choose who it gets connected to. If you do a public record request and you come up with how a system is used, what the audit logs are, or how it's misused, you can provide all those to Have I Been Flocked? And they generally are accepting those sorts of things. The EFF seems to be really centered around whether an agency is using a specific kind of technology or not. Any sort of data contracts are big figures and data sharing are probably going to go to Have I Been Flocked. You might want to look into that a little bit more too. I'm trying to find, you know, concrete action for people to take, and that seemed like something that was like, rather than like, I'm going to be part of this group that's eventually going to get this policy, this is something where you can say, hey, we're all mapping this together. We're all mapping it in our own little pieces. That's the big collective action, and we're doing it through our local communities, and those may be ways to get plugged in. I see Henry's back there.
You happen to know at this point in time, if there was capital available, what would be the top 2 or 3 public records that one
So that, I guess it kind of depends on what your aim is, right? Like, if you're trying to help us locally, Jonathan might have a better answer to me, but I'm pretty sure we're trying to map the local architecture as well. If you're trying to step up, then I'm hesitant to say exactly what these groups want, because I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding is that's how they're piecemealing it. So, you know, electronic frontier frontation, highlight and flocks, and T-flock are your three best ones.
I'd like to find, if you were good at writing records requests and have funding, let's show a data path between Bend Police's Real-Time Crime Center, the Fusion Center, and the Oregon State Police.
Okay, that's a huge one. Yeah, the local one is ARCIC, and then you said Titan is the states. That's definitely a really invisible portion of that map. I thought that would be pretty cool.
And then I've got filed items that I want to have done, and time and funding on them. Like the last one I went for was $320, and I volunteer my time. This isn't my job. I'm for. So if anybody needs help with the public records request process, I won't help you fund it, but I can help you write it.
Well, I want to toss in there because I keep reading Muckrock. Muckrock helps you set it up, your public records request. I don't remember the exact details, but it will definitely check it out if you're trying to write public records requests. It'll make your process a lot easier.
I have a list of like 20 asks for public records. If you want to look at it, I've got it available right here. I'm sorry I didn't provide that earlier, but.
Okay, Ariel, since you won't plug yourself, I want to say I started in December watching city council meetings and trying to figure out how the city works. I still don't have a clue, but in one, I forget what the committee's called, something to do with procurement. What's that committee called? You meet like not very often. That's it. So, Public Contract Review Board, I heard him watching from my YouTube, is the only person that I've heard in any of this stuff so far that has mentioned that there's a public concern about where this data may be going. So that's a start. So thank you for that, Ariel.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, I feel like I should just share. So I'm Ariel Mendez, and if you live in the city of Bend, I'm one of the 7 members of council that represents you at our municipal government level. I think, hearing some of the concerns in this group, there's a lot of valid concerns, especially when you think at the broader level, whether it's abuse or things like tracking your behavior, changing prices to charge you something, the insurance concerns were mentioned. There's a lot here. And I would encourage you to, the best that you can, think strategically about what you want to accomplish, and then figure out what the mechanisms are to get there. And I will share one of my models for political change is kind of the inside-outside strategy, where you have decision makers like myself who are elected or appointed and work with staff and are basically on the inside. And then you have members of the community who are on the outside, who raise concerns, who experience things at the ground level. And real political change happens when those two work together. So when they're synced up, and when there's trust, when you're sharing information, and there's real opportunity for political change, I think, in my experience, that's when the most change actually happens. So I would encourage you to keep building relationships with each other, build relationships with your counselors, your elected officials, to the extent that you can, and see where you have common ground. If you have questions that aren't getting answered, then yeah, elevate, escalate, talk to the media, make some noise. But these are, I have to admit, you know, when I look at those maps that show where things like flock cameras are, and I see other cities that have hundreds or even thousands of them, it's pretty dismaying. It's worrisome. And I'm glad that Bend isn't like that. But I do think there's a really good conversation to be had about where do we want to be? Where are we going to draw the line? Thank you, Jonathan, for hosting and organizing, and it's great to see some of you, and I'll stick around for a couple minutes if you want to chat, and yeah, go from there.
I got a question here, if you can take one. How do we as a public develop trust with the city council so that we create a relationship and create those conversations and open those doors?
So the question was, how do you develop trust with city councilors so that you have an opportunity to create those relationships? Well, I think one of the special things about living in a place like Central Oregon is that we actually do have a lot of opportunities like that. So if you can show up to community events and talk to people, you know, you'll get a chance to have a conversation. And, you know, I mean, I know we've had conversations. We can have more conversations. So keep doing that. It's, yeah, I mean, I would say part of political change requires building those relationships and having a level of trust that isn't blind, but is actually based on a previous relationship. So to the extent that you can build a relationship, you might not agree on 100% of the things. That's normal, right? Disagreement is normal. But it's helpful to have some other context for that relationship, so that's not the only thing that you're focused on. But I would say, yeah, show up to events, go to organizations, meetings, and you know, sometimes if you want to meet, send me an email. Email is great. We do get a lot of emails, though. And if you don't get a response, don't be afraid to send a second one. And I'll do my best to get back to you, but yeah, I've got a list of people that I've been meaning to get back to, and sometimes it just takes time, but building those relationships is critical, yeah.
Ariel, wasn't there a meeting tonight? Council meeting tonight?
Cancel.
Oh, was?
Yes, sir, so he can come here.
Awesome, well, I'm looking for a coffee with Ariel.
We only booked the room until 7:30, and I think we're right about there, right? Oh, 7. We've got a half hour to clear out. So for our first public engagement, I think this went well. I appreciate everybody showing up and being here. And I'll be around afterwards. Cleaning up if anyone has questions. You guys are all just as important as us.
I'd really like to volunteer.
Okay. We will